You know this feeling, that moment you realize you've been keeping life upright for years, while no one ever noticed you were doing it alone. Men rarely admit this, but what wakes a man up isn't pain. It's finally seeing what that weight has been trying to tell him. And once you see it, you can't go back to pretending you don't. Have you ever asked yourself where your steadiness actually comes from? If you haven't, it's not failure. It's the cost of always showing up for people who never looked closely enough at you. It's about the moment a man stops pouring himself into everything around him and finally turns that effort back toward himself. Because the real trap was never love itself. It was the expectations planted in him long before he knew he was allowed to question them. The lie you were raised on. Here's the shock no one prepares for. Most men don't lose themselves in relationships. They lose themselves in expectations they never truly agreed to live under. But the moment that illusion cracks, something fierce wakes up. It hits him quickly, almost like realizing he's been running someone else's script without ever reading it. A man realizes what he once labeled as strength was really just routine. And routine is the quietest thief a man ever meets. It takes pieces of you without making a sound. And habit often looks like loyalty until the day you finally step back from it. Sometimes it shows up in the smallest ways, like realizing you have been saying yes to things you never wanted in the first place. But the Stoics pointed to something simpler. A man's first responsibility is to stay honest with himself. Anything that clouds that honesty leads him off course. The moment a man stops saying yes automatically, his life shifts. So the real question isn't how much can I take? It's why was I expected to hold all of this by myself? From that point on, he stops moving like someone stretched thin and starts moving like someone steering his own direction with intent. And once a man chooses himself even once, he never unsees what comes next. Most of what weighed on him was never his to carry in the first place. One honest moment with yourself can reset a direction you thought was fixed. And it's exactly that moment that decides how every relationship will feel afterward. And the first place that old lie starts to show is inside modern relationships, where men are praised for being steady, then quietly drained for it. Most men don't need new answers. They just need one quiet moment where they finally listen to what they already knew. If that line finally put words to something you've carried quietly for years, a simple like is more than enough. Why modern relationships exhaust men. Society hides a brutal truth. People talk about love like it's salvation, yet live it like a duty no one can relax in. Unspoken demands slowly turn warmth into work, and most men only notice it when they're already exhausted. Most men know this feeling. Even a simple dinner can feel like a test you didn't study for. He walks through the door after a long day, and before he even takes off his shoes, he's already scanning the room, trying to guess if tonight will be calm or if he's about to fix another storm he didn't start. You can't control how someone feels, only what you do next. And once a man stops taking every mood personally, everything gets easier to navigate. When a man treats every change in the air as something he must correct, discipline collapses. A Stoic would say it plainly. You guide the wheel, not the weather. Don't confuse love with constantly adjusting yourself to stabilize someone else's mood. Every man has lived that moment, when being strong slowly shifted into doing more than anyone ever acknowledged. That's not partnership. It's emotional imbalance disguised as connection. And every man knows this. Not every battle deserves his fire. What truly throws a man off course is realizing he's been reacting instead of choosing. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you chose instead of just responding? That realization hits hard because it shows he wasn't tired of loving. He was tired of disappearing inside it. It often shows up in small ways, like catching yourself apologizing for attention you didn't even create. A man thinks clearer the moment he stops trying to solve reactions that were never his job. And if this feels uncomfortably familiar, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you are carrying more than anyone ever noticed. Clarity shows up fast, usually the moment you stop carrying what was never yours. Modern relationships often ask men to manage two emotional worlds at once, and the cost shows up long before anyone admits it. Strength returns the moment he remembers he's allowed to guard his inner state, not to avoid love, but to stop losing himself in the act of giving it. That choice lifts him back into the version of himself he thought he'd lost. Steady, sharp, unmistakably alive. Relationships feel lighter the moment both people finally hold only what's theirs. Clarity returns when effort becomes shared instead of assumed. And that's usually the first time in years a man realizes he wasn't difficult, he was overloaded. And the truth is simple: a man can give deeply, but he cannot live on borrowed strength. No man is built to run his life on someone else's emotional fuel. So what happens when, for the first time, the only territory he's responsible for is four quiet walls with no demands inside them? That's where a man finally meets the person he avoided the longest, himself. And that inner meeting is exactly what leads into the next truth, the one most men don't slow down long enough to see. If this hits somewhere you've never put into words, keep going. It means you're finally seeing what life has been trying to show you. Solitude is not loneliness. An early morning in an empty kitchen can reveal a truth most men overlook. If it makes you uneasy, it doesn't mean you're weak. It just means no one taught you how to feel safe in your own company yet. The lack of distraction doesn't expose weakness. It exposes what you've been outrunning for years. No negotiations, no moods to track, no strain to absorb. Just a man returning to his own rhythm. Solitude becomes less about being alone and more about finally breathing in a space that isn't asking for a single piece of you. And then it hits him. The thing that unsettled him wasn't the pause. It was facing parts of himself he kept setting aside. And in that stillness, what he notices first isn't the lack of distraction, it's the truth he's been postponing. So here's the real punch. When nothing pulls on him, he finally sees which parts of his life were actually weighing him down. He spent years thinking life itself was overwhelming, when it was really just his mind running without rest. Sometimes silence isn't peace at all. It's a mirror held a little too close. But the truth lands differently. It was his own exhaustion echoing back at him. And that echo is honest. It tells you what your busy life never lets you say out loud. For the first time, he realizes silence isn't empty. It's informative. Solitude isn't an escape from people. It's a reunion with the self that got buried under obligations and responsibility. And the moment that a part returns, everything shifts. His thoughts stop scattering. The body loosens. The day feels less like something to survive and more like something he can shape. Because what remains in that clarity isn't loneliness. It's ownership, a grounded presence, and a life that finally answers to him again. Why men think they need someone to feel whole? What if the things you call needs were never needs at all, but patterns passed down to you? The comfort you chased didn't always match the man you eventually grew into. And the unease of being alone? That often started long before you ever had a choice in it. They told you you needed someone. Some of you were left, some of you walked away, and some of you never even got a real say. This speaks to all three. No one teaches men this part. The mind often mistakes repetition for truth. You didn't crave someone, You follow the script long enough for it to feel natural. Most men don't merge with someone out of destiny. They adjust, then call that adjustment fate. Half the time, you didn't even notice the adjustments. They felt small until you realize how much of yourself you traded away. It shows up in quiet ways. Agreeing to weekends you never enjoyed, sitting through conversations that drained you, smiling through holidays that felt more like performance than rest. You were never meant to outsource the parts of you that make you whole. The anchor was never outside. Were you truly missing someone? Or did you just never get the chance to know yourself at all? And once you see that, fear loses half its power. Most of the time, you weren't missing a person. You were missing a clear signal from yourself. And once that signal returns, you stop searching for answers in places that only ever confused you. It hits you fast, almost like realizing the door was unlocked the whole time and you just never tried turning the handle. Most men don't struggle with solitude. They struggle with remembering what their own voice sounds like. If that line stung a little, it's because some part of you remembers that voice. Half of us haven't heard our own voice clearly since the moment life started handing us responsibilities faster than we could name them. And once that voice comes back, external pulls don't vanish. They just stop deciding for you. You might still check your phone out of habit, still feel that old tug, but now it's preference, not a measure of worth. And from that point on, you stop folding every time someone else shifts. What shows up afterward is clarity. You stop looking outside yourself for confirmation of who you are. Your life stops tilting around someone else's unrest. Your days finally start answering to you again. And for the first time in a long while, something inside you actually settles. Love stops feeling like rescue and starts feeling like steady ground. The pause that rebuilds a man. There comes a point when a man stops asking why others change and starts noticing how often he steps away from what he knows is right. Most men don't get lost loudly. They drift quietly. That recognition doesn't feel dramatic. It just feels clean and unmistakably honest. And it usually shows up in tiny moments. The times you felt yourself dimming a little just to keep the peace a little longer. How many more times can you do that before there's nothing left that feels like you? Strength begins the second he stops letting every emotion dictate his next move. There is a quiet pause men often ignore, the place where real strength is forged. Most men get pulled off course not by crisis, but by small moments where they stop honoring their own sense of direction. Like promising it's fine during dinner when you knew you were swallowing something bigger than the moment itself. And it's in those small moments that a man realizes he's been agreeing to a smaller life than the one he was built for. No one took his power. He signed it away in every tiny surrender he thought didn't matter. The moment he stops second-guessing what he already knows is true, everything starts aligning again. Once he lets go of what kept him distracted, something inside him realigns naturally. Boundaries stop feeling like walls. They start feeling like clarity. You stop explaining yourself so much because suddenly you're not apologizing for existing anymore. A man who owns his inner world gives because he chooses to, not because he's afraid to lose something. A free man doesn't give to keep anyone close. He gives from a ground that doesn't shake under him anymore. Emotional independence isn't distance. It's the moment you stop bending your life just to keep the wrong thing steady. The quiet strength that grows in men who walk alone. One day a man looks around his own home and realizes the room isn't judging him. It's finally telling him the truth. Awareness doesn't shout. It taps you on the shoulder. It simply shows him who he is when no one is pulling on his attention. That's where real strength begins. Not in volume, but in honest self-recognition. Life sharpens the moment a man stops shaping himself to fit the crowd. Once he leans on his own principles, everything around him becomes easier to read. He notices something simple. Some circles shrink him, not because he's small, but because he's surrounded by people who can't handle a man with a backbone. He stops asking what's wrong with him and starts asking whether that life was ever right for him. That question alone has rescued more men than any apology ever could. Real strength is often the quietest presence in the room, the one that doesn't need noise to be felt. It's the discipline of not pouring yourself into every interruption. And when a man lives this way, something shifts inside him. Grounded men don't wait for approval. They move because they know what matters to them. He finally moves like a man who isn't scared of outgrowing the wrong rooms. Because once a man stops squeezing himself to fit the room, he finally sees who was shaping the room in the first place. This isn't about shutting the world out. Stoics believed a man's clarity grows the moment he stops chasing every interruption. A man who protects this state becomes dangerous in the best way. Not destructive, but self-governed. People notice the difference even if he never says a word. And the men who've already reached this point will tell you, life feels cleaner from here. He guards his energy the way a craftsman guards his tools. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the life he's building. And once a man reaches this point, he understands something he couldn't see before. The strength he was chasing wasn't out there. It was waiting the moment he refused to shrink himself just to keep the wrong people comfortable. If you're still here, let me know in the comments which part has hit the hardest so far. Most people turn this off the moment it gets uncomfortable. The fact that you're still listening already puts you in a different category. Financial freedom is authority. You think money changes a man's lifestyle. It doesn't. It changes how he stands in his own life. A man feels different the moment he knows nothing around him can jerk his direction off course. The phone company, the landlord, the pharmacy bill, none of them care how kind he is. They only ask one question: was he prepared or not? He moves with a different kind of discipline now, not rushed, not reactive, just deliberate. His choices sharpen. Money doesn't buy freedom, but the absence of it can rent out a man's peace by piece. Money doesn't make a man powerful. It simply stops other people from steering his life for him. Every man remembers a moment where a small bill arrived at the worst time, and how that tiny envelope controlled his whole mood for a day. Seneca once said, "Only the self-controlled are truly rich." And for men, that lands deeper than any motivational line. When a man controls his spending and his impulses, he finally controls his options. If this part stings a little, that's normal. Every man learns financial strength later than he wishes. A man with organized money thinks cleaner. Because money never lies, it shows you exactly where your discipline ends. Ask yourself this: are you buying comfort or are you buying control of your own time? He remembers standing at the checkout, paying for something he didn't even want, and realizing the real price wasn't on the receipt. And once a man sees that truth clearly, he starts treating every blur like a decision, not a reaction. He sees options where others see traps. That's what financial stability really does. It gives a man back margin, the margin to think, to say no, and to walk away without being owned by circumstance or people. Every man knows the deeper truth, the fear of becoming an obligation in a world he once supported. If that fear has ever kept you awake at night, you're not failing. You're simply seeing clearly what no one ever helped you name. If this part steadied something in you, keep going. The next piece will make the picture even clearer. And the man who once lived on a reaction now lives with leverage. Stability doesn't make a man cold. It just returns him to center. It removes the panic that once pushed him into the wrong crowds, the wrong commitments, the wrong life. He understands this truth. The goal was never money, it was to stand up inside his own life again. And once the noise is cleared, he finally notices the one thing he was really chasing the whole time: peace. And that peace becomes the foundation for everything that comes next, especially the kind he once thought he'd never earn. Peace is the ultimate currency. There's a point in a man's life when he realizes peace isn't a luxury. It's survival. Not the absence of problems, but the strength to face life without losing yourself in the chaos. If you've spent decades living on edge, even wanting this kind of balance is already a brave step. For most men, the real weight doesn't come from what happens, but from the way they keep arguing with reality in their own heads. No one does this perfectly. Some days you'll wrestle with the same old battles. The difference is you don't have to let them run your whole life anymore. He notices something almost surprising. When the pressure eases even a little, his mind finally has room to breathe again. He feels it in small ways. His jaw isn't clenched on the drive home. His chest isn't tight at night. And for the first time in a long while, he sleeps through till morning. And that realization lands deeper than any advice, because it comes from himself, not the world. He chooses his moves instead of reacting to every moment. His presence changes the atmosphere instead of absorbing it. Some men rediscover themselves in the smallest shifts, moments that finally give them room to hear themselves again. Sometimes a single quiet moment in the morning tells a man more truth than a week of distraction ever could. And once a man builds his life around that steadiness, everything else shifts. What once felt overwhelming now feels smaller, simply because he finally knows what actually deserves his energy. He's stepping back into the version of himself that life tried to scatter. And strangely, once he stops resisting everything, life starts opening doors he never noticed before. For the first time, he isn't bracing for whatever comes next. He's finally moving in rhythm with his days. That's when he understands. Clarity was never the reward at the end of the road. It was the foundation he needed to walk the road without breaking. A simpler life is often a better one. A man usually discovers this truth in the most ordinary moment, standing over a drawer he hasn't opened in years. Every man has that one drawer where the pets, the receipts, and 3 phone chargers go to retire. Not because the drawer matters, but because it shows him something quietly honest. Most of his life has been crowded by things that stopped serving him long ago. Letting things go doesn't shrink his life, it sharpens it. And simplicity gives him back decisions he didn't realize he'd handed away. He realizes he never needed a bigger life. He just needed a life that stopped arguing with who he's become. Every unnecessary commitment, every forced obligation, every object kept out of habit, once released, gives him back a little more control than he expected. Letting go feels small at first, until you realize how many parts of your life were only there because you never paused to question them. Progress comes from trimming the excess, not widening the path. His days feel more manageable, and his relationships become clearer simply because they're no longer tangled with noise. And here's a simple truth. The life he thought was too small was never the problem. It was the extra weight built around it. Pick one drawer, one habit, or no assumption to release. If you do that tonight, even once, tomorrow will already feel slightly different. Not to simplify everything, but to remind yourself that your life is allowed to fit the man you have quietly become. From that point on, the world doesn't feel overwhelming. It just feels honest. And for a man who's spent most of his life overcommitted, that kind of honesty feels less like loss and more like finally coming home. Honesty is a quieter life, but it's the first life that finally fits. When you no longer need love, you can finally love clearly. Society talks about love beautifully, but rarely teaches men how to stay centered inside it. That contrast leaves a mark, and once a man sees it, he can't unsee it. The difference becomes very clear. Needing love and choosing love are two entirely different lives. Stoic insight clarifies the divide. Need is attachment. Choice is freedom. A man tied to need is dragged around by every feeling. A man grounded in principle moves instead. If you've spent most of your life on emotional autopilot, it doesn't mean you're weak. It just means no one ever showed you that you were allowed to live differently. You will still have moments where old habits rise. Real freedom is choosing differently, even when the old reactions still knock. Love isn't meaning, love is a mirror. The moment a man stops depending on constant reassurance, he shows up as his real self instead of a version shaped to be accepted. When a man stops begging love to stay, he finally learns how to let love be real. Because love given from steadiness feels nothing like the kind given from fear. Real connection shows up when you stop performing for it. Men don't struggle with loving. They struggle with giving their heart to the wrong hands and losing themselves in the process. He learns something surprising. Real love doesn't ask for youth. It asks for clarity. What does love feel like when it comes from fullness instead of fear? The presence he offers becomes more intentional because it's no longer driven by the fear of losing something fragile. A man who no longer needs love becomes the one most capable of offering it clearly, not as proof of worth, but as something he shares from steadiness, not scarcity. And ironically, that's when the right people stop feeling afraid of losing him. They feel privileged to meet him. And that's exactly why the right people feel lighter to be around. They're no longer walking into a rescue mission, they're walking into a real partnership. That freedom turns love from a negotiation into a sanctuary, a state where he can remain whole, stay centered, and still open his heart without losing his footing. And once love is no longer a test, there is only one frontier left: who you keep becoming when no one is watching. The inner ground where men rise. A man doesn't evolve because life gets louder. He evolves the moment he hears himself clearly for the first time in years. Growth shows up when a man finally stops avoiding what's in front of him. Isolation weakens. Intention strengthens. And that shift doesn't feel dramatic. It feels clean. When he stops running from his own thoughts, his mind begins showing him what he's ready to outgrow. Beliefs he inherited from others start losing their grip. It can be as simple as noticing you no longer rush to answer every message the second it arrives. It surprises him how quickly life changes once he stops carrying ideas that were never his. And in that release, he meets the man he was supposed to become. And the strength he thought was gone turns out to have been waiting underneath all along. Progress starts when a man stops pretending and acts on what he already knows. And no man is ever late to this moment. Truth doesn't run on anyone's schedule. That's when he finally understands he was never meant to live a life built from reactions, but from intention. He no longer edits himself to fit expectations he never agreed to live by. It isn't pride, it's ownership. A man who embraces solitude as evolution builds from truth, not pressure, and that makes his life feel simpler, more grounded, and far more intentional. Any life that costs you yourself is too expensive, no matter what it pays back. If you remember only one line from this video, let it be that one. And the day a man stops negotiating his worth is the day life finally stops negotiating back. A man's life changes the moment he stops waiting for the world to cooperate and starts becoming the one who steadies himself. Most men rise not from a new beginning, But from finally telling the truth, they avoided the longest. And what remains is the version of you that was always there, buried under stories that never belonged to you. When a man stands alone on purpose, something in him shifts for good. And the men who choose to stand that way don't push good people away. They draw the ones who are just as anchored in who they are. He realizes the real turning point wasn't an event. It was the moment he stopped lying to himself. This journey isn't about walking away from love. It's about returning to yourself so fully that whatever comes after this point is guided by strength, not scarcity. Carry that with you and test it on just one quiet decision tomorrow morning. Even if it's as simple as choosing what finally keeps you steady instead of what keeps everyone else comfortable. And remember, you're not the only one rebuilding himself from the inside out. Thank you for spending this time here with me on Move or Die Stoic. If this spoke to you, you're exactly the kind of man this channel is built for. If you want to, share one line you're taking with you from this video. It might be the exact line another man needs to read.